Hello everybody, my name is Justin Classpool. This is my final project for CIS 2023 fall 2017. I chose to do the conversion application set, and so let's get started. Okay, so this is my class, which I simply, in the conversions namespace, it is calculations as the class. I have some properties here that I don't want you to be able to set this. That's why I'm only giving you a get, not a set. Only this class can set it. And then, so we have input, answer. This is going to be the abbreviation we use later, which will make more sense. Formatted. So how this works is if you use the #/hash, whatever you know that as, it will only show up until there is no more zeros. Or up until there is a zero, I'm sorry. But if you do all zeros, it forces it to be that long. So that'll make more sense in a minute when I show you. I have an enum for my types, which will make sense again in a little bit. I use a dictionary here. This is what I populate my combo box on the WinForm with. This is in the constructor that I create this. Let's see. Here's here's an overload for the constructor where I require an input and a calc type, and then we create, we call the mass method, the temperature method, the distance method, or the time method based upon which one of these you pass from, whatever you're consuming my class with. And here's the calc types, which this means mass, kilograms to pounds, pounds to kilograms. This is temperature, Fahrenheit to Celsius, distance, inches to centimeters, you get it. And then that's time, year to date, years to days. And that'll all make sense later. And if it's none of those, the input abbreviation gives out error, and basically you just never should get that. Let's see here, time. So whenever you call the time method, which you don't call it necessarily, it gets called from here because it's private. You don't even see this. The only thing you see, actually out of all of this, the only thing you can do is this. This is the only thing you can consume without first calling the constructor to get the rest of the stuff. You can get the calc types, that's it, nothing else. These are all private, and that's how all the, as you can tell here. So we have, here's that input abbreviation I was talking about. So on this one it's temperature, and so I'm setting that to Fahrenheit, Celsius, Celsius, Fahrenheit. And then the answer, of course, is computed with the formula. And down here's more examples of what I'm doing. Let me go to, where's days. Here we go, and I put a space here. Well, the rest of these don't have spaces because generally, at least the way I've seen it before, you don't always put a space, like if it's 27 feet, it's just 27 FT. There's usually not a space, at least not how I do it. So if it was a real app, perhaps there would be an option to give them, have their preference set. But anyway, so that's the whole class, not a whole lot to it. This is the only thing that some people might not understand. And again, so you could do this two ways. That's the way I chose it, and here's another way to do it. So this one would give you, it'd be like 55,555.5331, and that would be it. Well, this one would go 34010. So that would be if you always want it to show 5, you would use zeros. If you just want it to stop when the last zero happens, like this would be 0000, whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. I prefer it to be cleaner, which you'll see maybe. It just depends on the numbers that we get lucky with. But anyway, so moving along here. Here is the console app, which I'm using the /t here that indents on the console. You'll see it. I guess I should start at the top. So here's the loop that I'm doing to allow the user to continue just doing it and doing it and doing it until they say they don't want to do it anymore. I'm declaring the calc type, which I'm using down here in the switch. That's why I call it up here. I could actually do it in the while loop, but no, real reason to, because I'm no real reason to do it there. Anyway, and then here, so after that, the numbers I'm self-assigning, and that's what they're doing down here. Right here, I'm capturing what key. It's read key, not read line. So the first key you press on your keyboard, it'll move on. This gives a blank line. I like blank lines to keep things clean. But anyway, and this is a switch for whatever key you pressed. If the key is a digit 0, which would be above the P key on your keyboard, or if you do numpad 0, we do Celsius to Fahrenheit, which that's temperature, that's the calc type. And we're just setting it here. We're not actually calling a method. We're just setting the variable up here. That's it. And I have them all listed there. And if you choose one that's not valid, it'll tell you you didn't enter a valid section, and ensure your numlock is on, because sometimes I was seeing that if you don't have your numlock on, or if you do, it doesn't always let you, it doesn't always count that as number pad 9, for example. It won't, it'll just be page up. Anyway, and here's a go-to, which the instructor's probably groaning, but go-tos are not, they're not bad in C#. They have their place. They are considered bad practice in C, and I don't know C++, but maybe that as well. Pretty much any other language, they're bad. That everybody will groan when you do it, but it's valid here because I'm skipping this section here if you do it wrong. I don't want, there's no reason to go through this. There's no reason to make a whole nother loop for just this area. It'd be much more confusing. So just doing the go-to here gets you out and you just skip. Which again, most languages it's bad because go-tos can get ugly. But here, it's perfectly fine. It's a valid use for C#. They're not bad in C#. At least if you get crazy with them, they will be. But anyway, just this one that's not bad in my opinion. Hopefully the instructor agrees. Anyway, so then assuming you chose a correct digit, it will then ask you to enter amount to convert. We then read the line. This time it's a line, not key, so we get the whole thing. I then do a double try parse, and assuming that it is true, which I could do, equals true, but instead, if you don't do anything, it's true, and if you want it to be false, you do that. But anyway, so this is true, and if it's true, I call the calculation, I set it up, and then I return in a formatted string because I think they're easier to read. There you go. That's the answers. And then I, of course, print it. If the double try parse fails, I simply write out, please only enter numbers. And again, here's where you would be if you messed up before here. And it will then ask the user if they would like to press, or if they would like to do more, and press Y. Again, we're doing just read key, and it's console Y. It doesn't matter if it's capital or lowercase, it's the same key. And if they press anything but Y, we say keep looping is false, which breaks the loop up here, and program ends. There you go. So let's see that in action real quick. We'll go through, we'll do one of each. So temperature Celsius, I'm pressing 0 on my number pad. And I'm going to do 55. So as you can see, 55 Celsius, 131 Fahrenheit, and there's no decimals here. There's a, let's do it. Let's do so for one. Whoops. It helps if you do it right. So I pressed any other key but Y because I wasn't reading the directions. So let's do this again. We're going to do 1 this time, and we're going to do 55.55. And as you can see here, now it did because these aren't zeros. There you go for that as well. So we're going to do it again. This time we will do distance centimeter to inches. Yes, 3, 55. That's inches to centimeters. Yes, 4, which is meters to feet. And again, you're seeing the whole formatter that I did to where it only goes so far. Doesn't just keep doing it all the way to 5 every time. Let's do yes again. 5, 55. This time it's feet to meters. Yes. 6 days to years this time. So 55 days is not much of a year. We'll do yes. This time we're going to do number 7, which is tiers to days. How about we fix that one to say years to days? Okay, let's run that again. So 7 years to days. 55 years is a whole lot of days, and as you can see here, we've got the comma, which is part of the formatter. That's what this whole thing is doing here. If it needs a comma, it will do it. Otherwise, it won't. Anyway, so actually I'm going to show you here, if I press any key besides Y, it closes. So let's run it again, and I'm going to press I'm just going to press the letter F, which is none of those options, and it warns me I did not enter a valid selection. Ensure my num lock is on, and then I'll hit Y. What was I at? 8. Let's do 8 now. We'll do 55 kilograms to pounds. And as you see, that one actually took all 5 decimal places. And we'll hit Y. 9, 55 pounds to kilograms. And Y. And then one other thing I need to show, so I'm going to do a valid selection here, but here I'm going to press, that's not a number, obviously, 3 F's. And it tells me, please only enter numbers. And I'm going to hit no, or any other key besides yes. And it closes. And, oh man, did I have that on the screen? Okay. Anyway, and moving on now. So that's the console app. That's actually the hardest one to describe because it's got the most to it. The WinForm that we're about to show you here is actually really, really simple. So first I'm just going to show you I'm going to set it as a startup project. And now I'm going to show it to you. Here we go. It's the multi-purpose conversion tool brought to you by OSUOKC. Anyway, as you saw whenever I first loaded it, amount was autofocus, which is one of the requirements for the Windows form. This here is actually populated by that dictionary in my class. So this here, this dictionary, which is populated here in the constructor, that's how I'm pulling that, which I'll show you in just a moment. How I'm doing that. Anyway, so let's do 55 and convert. 55 centimeters is that many inches. So one of the requirements was that we have a clear form. I also have a hotkey for it if you want to do Alt-C. And it clears everything and sets the focus back. I also have file exit, which, exits. So let's start that again. And I'm just going to leave it blank and hit convert. Oops. I use a message box. As you can see actually right down here, the message box icon is error. The buttons are just okay. And then that's the title, which I don't think they call it. I can't remember what it's not title, it's caption. That's caption. And then there's the message, of course. So let me put something does the same thing. Gotta enter an amount there. So let's clear it. And also you can do 55. I'm going to hit tab and enter. There you go. Works that way too. I'm going to hit Alt-C to clear. And let's do a big number. I don't know what's going to happen there. Oh, it worked. Look at that. That is a whole lot of inches. Alright, and Alt-C, Alt-E to exit. And so now let's walk through it real quick. Actually, I'm going to hit F5 and just kind of have that thing right there. So we have, this is the form load. That's the just automatic. But we have TB, which is, usually I do TXT, but we did TB this time for text box. Amount, which is this guy here, this box, text box. And we set focus. It's the first thing we do after it initializes. This is how we set the combo box. It'll look a little confusing. You don't have to do this conversions here, define the namespace, because I have it up here in a using. But I'm just old habit to leave it there so I don't confuse myself later. And then I call the constructor. This is just the constructor one. And then here's the data source. I'm using a binding source. And here's the conversion type dictionary. And then you just pass null. You don't need the second thing. Display member, which is what you're seeing there, is the value. So if we're on this, that's the value. That's the key. That's value. And then we have, of course, the value member is the key. So whenever you hit submit, it doesn't actually pass distance blah 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 to the code. It just passes DC to I, which is the enum right there, DC to I. So again, moving along here, if you here's the clear tool strip menu item, which is this. If you click that, it clears everything. So what it does first is it makes that empty, makes the label down here Whoops, helps if I do a number. Makes the label down there, so both of those are cleared, and then as you saw, autofocus to that. If you do File, Exit, it will close out. I don't know if I mentioned, this is like my 10th time recording this thing, so I don't know if I already mentioned it, but I did do a custom icon. I just Googled one. No, I didn't make that icon. I just thought it looked cooler than the default one. So normally you would not just Google it. You'd want to have a legal one, but since this isn't being distributed and it's a student thing, whatever. I think it looks cool. Anyway, so we exit there. And that's, oh, let me run it and do the, so Alt-E closes. There you go. That was the hotkey for that, which I don't even know if I showed. So anyway, exit. Yeah, moving on. And the button to convert, which is obviously the button. Let's bring that bad boy back up. This big guy here, if you click him, or her, or it, whatever, we get, it will check if the amount is empty, or if the amount fails to parse. That's why it's equals false over here. Fails to parse to a double. And if it does, we give out the error box, or message box, and make it an error icon. However, if it is not empty, and it does parse, then we go ahead and we call my calculation method again, overloaded constructor, technically, whatever. And this looks a lot worse than probably anyone else is going to make it, but anywho, I did, we do the double parse again on the text amount, which had already made sure it was good, which actually I can just do X, because I have X up there. Let's make that actually better. What was I going to, let's do input, and go ahead and rename X to input. So yeah, because I'm already outputting it, and make it a double. There we go, double. Let's run that again. I don't want to be, nope. Tab enter, there we go. Alt-E. Okay, so yeah, whenever you do the outs, you don't have to actually declare that anywhere anymore. Early C# you did, not anymore you don't. Yeah, it just makes the input, and you can call it anywhere else down, or inside the if, sorry. Not 100% certain if you can call it out of the if. You might be able to. Yeah, you can. Alright. Moving on here. So yep, after we get the information back from the calculation, which I'm storing in the variable calc, I then so like this well, you see it here, all the properties. That's why I'm making it about be an object. If I wanted it to, I can make it be a calculation object, but or it's just easier to do. There's my input formatted, which is the one that has the string format there, and then of course abbreviated is what I set in these here, depending on which one you called. So, and I'm passing those back, and there you go. So that is the win form. Not a whole lot to it. Let me open. Let me. I want to double check one thing here while I'm doing this. Totally prepared. Totally prepared. Win form. Bin. Debug. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I did also put the icon there. Not sure, you just do that in the build, and then properties, and right there you just choose your little converter icon. So I just thought that was cool. Totally bonus points, right, instructor? Okay, moving on. That's all the WinForm is. Now we get into the tests. This is a unit test. I have 3 unit tests. I have a positive, I have a negative, and I have an edge. And as you can see here, I actually have it set to run all tests when you build. So every time you build it, it reruns them. But, or it's supposed to. I don't know why it wasn't doing that. But anyway, now it does. As you can see, they all pass. This I'm asserting true. I'm expecting the answer to be true of that. This is not empty. See, string is not empty. It's a bool. Results to be true, and it passes. Here's this one. I'm expecting it to throw an exception if the answer is greater than 0. Well, the answer is greater because I'm converting 55 centimeters to inches, and I don't want to do the math, but yes, that is greater than 0. and I'm throwing the exception. It's expecting that, except just a standard exception. You could make it whatever type of exception you want as long as you throw it, and that passes. And then the edge case input of 55, it should give you a double, and there you go. It does give you a double, and it's not a number or a letter or anything like that. So, and it passes. And that, I believe, looking over the instructions real quick here, I believe that's all that there was supposed to be. And as you could tell in the WinForm and my console, neither one has any business logic in it. It does everything through. I guess you could argue that this kind of, I mean, that's really not, to me, business logic, because all the happenings are behind the scenes. The WinForm for sure doesn't. I guess if he wants to be really picky and grading, you could maybe count me off because I'm manually typing those in. But I mean, I have the dictionary that I could use, I guess. But anyway, I think it works there, and to me, that's not the logic. You know, it's just display. That's the view. So yeah, everything's called through there, and I believe there's the class again one more time. There's nothing too fancy in it. All the calculations, I just googled the different formulas and tried to make them all good. Originally, I wasn't going to do this on the input formatted. I wasn't going to do this because I wanted you to see the full input you put. But if somebody wanted to type a ridiculously long decimal, I decided it would be best to not have to display all that and get crazy with it, because the answer will never be more than the 5. So if your client really wanted it, you could not format it. I'd probably still format it. I just make the no, actually I probably wouldn't. If they wanted to see the exact input, you just wouldn't do that. What you have it here, you can, you have to do a 2-string on it or whatever, but you could, or you could just make another input for string. But yeah, that is it. And one more time, I'll run the WinForm one more time just to show. One of the things is to have consistent alignment and sizing. It shows everything to be left. I guess I'd show you the actual build of it. Not that design. Everything is aligned to the left. Oh yeah, it's one of the, I almost forgot there. Okay, so on this I did set it to where there's a minimum, so you can make it as big and ugly as you want, but it will not go smaller than whatever I set it to. It's like, it's a weird number. 440 by 282, because that's just, I mean, I guess we could make it a little, or no, I can't, because let's try 420. So yeah, anyway, yeah, and the sizing is big and obvious. It's not the most beautiful thing, but I'm a programmer, not a UI designer, so hopefully that doesn't matter. And I was going to try to figure out a better way to display the answer, but I actually kind of liked the way it's a different font size and it shows up below this. So that's the reasoning I did that. I just thought it looked better after I had been playing around with this a few times, and to me it just looks better. So I'm going to build that, and I'm about to submit it. And thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to try to help you. And yeah. Thanks.